Good morning, everyone. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes. I see people still joining the meetings. Okay, I think we can start. Good morning, everyone. Thanks all of you for joining this webinar. Today I will be moderating this webinar. Work for ENTSO-E as an adequacy and market modeling analyst. As presenter today, we will have Simon Art for ENTSO-E, convener of Seasonal Outlook Steering Group. And from ENSOG, we will have Diana, who is also working in the system development. I can think we can move to the next slide. So today this webinar will be recorded. I would kindly ask you to ask your questions directly on Slido. You will have here the QR code and the code if you want to join directly on the website, and this will be displayed also on the different slides in the presentation, so you still can access after we pass the slide. We would ask you to enter your name and company details so we know who is talking. In case there is a lot of questions and due to time constraint, we will only keep the most relevant questions, the one that got the most votes. Yeah, the team chat and hand raising feature will not be used for this presentation. I think we can move to the next slide. The agenda for today is a quick introduction. Then we will have the electricity winter outlook presented by ENTSO-E. Then we will follow with the gas winter outlook presented by ENTSOG. Finally, we will have a Q&A session, and we will end this webinar with a summary. So the purpose of the seasonal outlooks, we do this because it's important to assess the adequacy situation and to prevent and mitigate risk to security and supply during the winter periods. It's also relevant to inform all interested parties about the gas and electricity adequacy situation at a pan-European level, and finally to allow ENTSO-E and ENTSO to exchange information about the situation in their respective system for this winter. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide. And I will let the floor to Simon Art, convener of Seasonal Outlook Steering Group for ENTSO-E, present the electricity part.
Thank you, François. Yes, good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm Simon Art, working for Swissgrid. I'm here on behalf of ENTSO-E as the convener of the Seasonal Outlook Steering Group. I think we can already go to the next slide. So we're talking about seasonal outlook today. Seasonal outlook is, let's say, a bit special in the way that is placed between the European resource adequacy assessment and the week ahead, what we call short-term adequacy assessment. So the short-term adequacy assessment, it is really like operational, close to real time. whereas the European Resource Adequacy Assessment basically produces outputs and information for the design of the design and the demand for capacity mechanisms for member states. And the seasonal outlook is in between. So it's a monitoring instrument, a monitoring product, less than a little bit less than an operational decisions product, I would say. But of course, things are closely monitored, and operational decisions can already be like anticipated on the basis of this output. On the other side of the time frame, we look at the 10-year network development plan, which is a long-term report looking ahead more than 10 years, while ERA looks ahead a maximum of 10 years, 1 to 10 years. And the TYNDP informs policy about energy policy and also includes the framework for assessing network enhancement projects, network development projects, using the framework of the cost-benefit analysis, which is continuously developed. So it's needless to say that the uncertainty increases with the term length, with let's say the forecast horizon. So going left, uncertainty increases. Going to the right, we know a bit more what will happen. We can go to the next slide, please. This is the general scope of the study. The study is based in summer and in winter. I forgot to mention that. We do that 2 times, once in summer and once for winter. The general information is always based on the best available data that the TSOs provide. We do this data collection during summer and autumn. We provide also a maintenance update window in case the scheduled maintenance have changed in between, and then we have a certain data freeze deadline, and that's where we stop collecting data and exchanging on the data, let's say, and we start simulating the adequacy assessment as a pan-European analysis. It's a Monte Carlo simulation using probabilistic patterns for supply, demand, and outages. And we do it in 2 variants, once with market-only resources, and the other time we consider also out-of-market resources, where these out-of-market resources have been declared available by TSOs. Also included in the seasonal outlook, as in previous winters since the gas crisis, is the critical gas volume analysis, which in short informs us how much gas is needed to keep the electricity system adequate and in good operational shape. Regarding special considerations, we didn't have any regional concerns identified by TSOs directly. Regarding Ukraine and Moldova, the system is integrated the first time as a part of the European power system. So the first time it is modeled quantitatively. However, needless to say that these results, they have to be considered with utmost care, because any disruptive events due to the ongoing war cannot be included in a study that looks several months ahead. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the general trend. To make it short, the overall adequacy level is expected to be robust. Why? Because the hydro storage levels have been reported as quite favorable for this November. Also, the availability of thermal plants is expected to be good, and the demand compared to last year's looks comparable. And if we look at the next slide, we can have a look at the hydro storage levels and their evolution over the years. Let's say the evolution of the forecast for the beginning of November in the last in 4 years, included this year, and we can see that for 2025 we have 16 terawatt hours more energy available in the storages. That's more than the 3 years before. Not tremendously more, but it is more, and of course it makes the overall situation favorable. And if we go to the next slide, we can have a look on the planned outages. So this is a comparison of the planned outage for this winter outlook on the right side with the planned outages as they were assumed for the last winter outlook. They start a little higher than last year, and then they decrease below 15% at the beginning of January, the planned outages. And then they stay lower than last year until they catch up at the beginning of April, where they have their peak. So the highest difference can be seen between lignite and nuclear, whereas gas and hard coal are comparable to last year, or even a little higher than last year. But the bottom line is that the situation regarding the planned outages is more favorable, is a little more favorable than last year. We have more thermal generation online, which is good for adequacy. We can go one slide further and have a look at the net generation capacities. So the general trend is that renewable energy has increased by 74 gigawatt. This increase is mainly driven by 58 gigawatts of solar. And there was also an increase of wind by 14 gigawatt and a 2 gigawatt increase in other renewable energy sources. They are not explicitly specified here. The highest relative increase can be seen for batteries. So this is a very low scale from 11 to 28 gigawatts, so an increase of 17 gigawatts. But yeah, we basically can see the batteries grow. It's a 150% increase. And on the other side, resources like lignite and hard coal and oil are continue their decreasing trend. We have nearly 11 gigawatt less hard coal, lignite, and oil, and we also have 1 gigawatt less nuclear capacity. The only thermal category increasing for as compared to last year was gas, showing a little more than 3 gigawatt more gas capacity, which of course is suited as a flexible resource accompanying this the energy transition. So the thermal net capacity goes down and the renewable capacity has increased. Thank you. We could look at the next slide. Thank you. This is the demand trends compared to the 2 past winters. So demand increases by roughly 3% compared to the last winter, and is more or less at the level of the winter before the last winter at 1,339 terawatt hours. The overall, so the peaks observed for the profiles, for the load profiles, they are comparable to the last winters. So yes, that's the demand trends, and then we can go one further, and I think we can already look at an overview of the results on the next slide. Yes, thank you. So these two maps, they show on the left side results for normal market operations, and they show on the right side the results for the same simulations, considering non-market resources as well. The yellow dots, where they are visible, they show the expected energy not served relative to the seasonal consumption of the respective bidding zone. We see the highest one being in Malta with a 0.4%, and also in Ireland with a 0.3% of expected energy not served in relation to the seasonal consumption. We can also see some risks in Cyprus, and we can also observe traces of risks in Finland, in Estonia, and Lithuania. And also for the Ukraine, the model shows, we could say, only traces of risks. But of course, as said at the beginning, it's important the data are delivered during late summer, early autumn, and we do not assume any disruptive events in the simulations due to the ongoing war. If we compare the left map with the right map, we can see some of the dots disappear, not all of them. And of course, a continuous monitoring by TSOs and the regional coordination centers is ongoing. And in order to go more into the depth of these differences between the left and the right map, we can go to the next slide. Thank you very much. And here we see the expected energy not served as an absolute number, the highest one being here for Ireland, with a 30 gigawatt hours of ENS. So this risk pertains throughout the season. It's peaking in March, but we also can see that it can be eliminated completely or nearly completely by using non-market resources. A similar case can be observed by Malta. For Malta, it's 4 gigawatt hours, and Malta relies on specifically designed non-market resources to meet the scarcity. And using these non-market resources eliminates this risk completely for Malta. For Cyprus, we also can see risks. This is due to no interconnections, and it happens in adverse weather conditions and unplanned outages. For the traces of risks that we observe in Estonia, Finland, Lithuania, and Lithuania, and the Northern Ireland, they pertain. There are no non-market resources, or they do not help to mitigate these risks. The case of Northern Ireland is, let's say, correlated with Ireland in the sense that we do observe some risk for Northern Ireland, but using the non-market resources can also alleviate or eliminate this risk for Northern Ireland. And the main drivers, they are listed on the left side, as I already mentioned. It's mostly a combination of higher unplanned outages, unfavorable weather conditions, such as a high load and a low renewable generation, and an aging a fleet of aging thermal units. I'm not sure if we have a next slide, but we can go for the next slide. Yes. So I think, François, this is the moment where you step in. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. So the reports are now available on the ENTSO-E website, as well as the input data we use for our simulations. So you can go and have a look. And yeah, meanwhile, the regional coordination centers, of course, remains vigilant by continuously monitoring the week ahead adequacy situation. Now I'm leaving the floor for ENTSO-E for their presentation, and I give it the mic to Diana.
Thanks, Francois, and thanks to ENTSO-E for putting together this joint webinar on the winter supply outlook, as well as for your cooperation on these topics. And glad we are all here to present and learn from each other. So my name is Diana, and today I will present the winter supply outlook. The report itself was prepared and published at the beginning of October. It covers the period of the winter season where we analyze the gas infrastructure capability from, let's say, different angles or through various simulation sensitivities. While not in very detailed, but in the report, we also provide an overview of the upcoming summer season and highlighting some trends during the injection period. So on the next slide, please. Yeah, here you can see some of the general assumptions we worked with. Basically, in our report, we try to answer one key question. Can the current gas infrastructure meet demand under different supply and demand scenarios while still leaving enough gas in storage at the end of the winter? And to answer this question, we started our winter outlook analysis from the actual storage level on 1st October. At that point, storage was 83% full, which is already quite close to the lower end of what we have seen historically in Europe. And if we look back just 1 year, storage was in a much better position, around 98 BCM. And during the last winter, because of both the market situation and the weather, storage was used much more heavily. In fact, about 31% of the total gas supply for the 24-25 winter came directly from storage. And we ended the season with just a bit over 30% left. So naturally, all of these had an impact on the situation we saw at the beginning of this winter. And another key parameter we use in our analysis is the demand assumptions. We looked at two cases, a reference winter and a cold winter. The reference winter demand comes from the data collected from our TSOs, basically their best estimate of what demand can look like for the upcoming winter. And as you can see from the graph, those values are quite close to the demand we saw last winter. And if we compare last winter's demand with the winter 2023, we can see that it was around about 7% higher. And actually, it's important to highlight that the last winter wasn't actually cold. It just wasn't as mild as the winter we had in 2023. And regarding the cold winter demand, for our winter outlook, we used the same demand values that are applied in ENTSO-E security of supply simulation report, or ENTSO-E union-wide security of supply report. And this approach for the cold winter demand assumes the coldest winter season observed in each country since 2009. Of course, those values were reviewed and updated by the TSOs to reflect market developments as well as the changes in the European gas supply and demand structure. And basically, overall, we saw a decrease of around 10% in cold winter demand at the European level. And those updated figures are what we used in our simulations for the cold winter. In our model, we also analyzed different supply scenarios. we looked at the 3 LNG supply cases. The reference scenario, which is based on the historical LNG flows observed in Europe. Then we have a high LNG scenario where LNG inflow is limited only by the regasification capacities of the terminals. And this kind of analysis helps us understand the full potential of the LNG infrastructure. And finally, we have a low LNG scenario, which reflects a situation where LNG supply to Europe is limited. So this kind of analysis is conducted to show how important it is to attract enough of LNG. Regarding Russian pipeline supply, we looked at 2 cases. One where Russian gas continues flowing only through the Turk Stream, and another with a full disruption of all Russian pipeline supplies. And in addition, we added 2 more disruption scenarios. The first considers disruption of the largest offshore infrastructure in Europe. And the second looks at the disruption of all imports from Algeria. Those are essentially stress tests. They show how the system would respond in extreme situation and highlight the flexibility of the gas infrastructure. So last but not least, and actually very important, in our model, all countries cooperate to minimize the risk of demand curtailments or to share that risks. As well, storage is injected and withdrawn in optimal way, and imports are used in a coordinated manner. The only limitation to this cooperation is infrastructure capacity limitation, which can prevent full coordination between countries. So moving on the next slide, please. Yeah. So here are the main takeaways for the reference winter with this reference or projected demand. First, we see that the European gas network enables the demand to be met and still to keep more than 30% storage levels in underground gas storage facilities at the end of the winter. Secondly, under high demand scenarios, such as 2-week period of high consumption or a single day peak demand, 1-day demand, no European Union member state would face a potential risk of demand curtailment. And in a situation with the limited LNG availability or this low LNG scenario, some additional demand response may be required. This could be, for example, market-based, when higher prices lead less essential gas consumers to switch to alternative energy sources. Or it could be policy-driven measures. Otherwise, higher withdrawal rates from storage could be still compensated. And finally, Europe could still reach 30% storage stock level by the end of the winter, even without any Russian pipeline gas. And these clearly demonstrate the independence of the European infrastructure gas system from Russian pipeline supply. And on the next slide, please. Yeah. We can see here the results for the cold winter scenario. So in the cold winter case, Europe would need to use UGS more extensively. We would also need to bring in more LNG or rely on demand side response. We also see that using the strategic resource could further improve the situation. Just as a reminder that resources represent about 11% of all European Union storage capacities and are usually not freely available on the market under normal conditions. So essentially, they help to mitigate the risk for the countries that hold them. And finally, to avoid storage being depleted down to those strategic levels, we would need around 20 BCM of additional LNG and another 8 to 17 BCM to reduce the risk of triggering this demand-side response. And basically, in those simulations, when we start to see extreme weather conditions combined with the peak day event and no Russian pipeline supply, we actually begin to observe limitations in the system flexibility in Central and Eastern Europe and in Southeastern Europe. This shows that those countries are more constrained or more locked compared to others. And on the next slide, please. Yeah, here, as I mentioned earlier, in this winter outlook edition, we included the infrastructure disruption scenarios. In the reference winter demand scenario, when combined with the supply disruption scenarios, it is a full disruption of Russian pipeline supply and disruption in infrastructure. So in this case, additional withdrawals from EU storage would be needed. And to keep storage levels above the 30% at the end of the winter with the forecasted demand, a disruption of all imports from Algeria will require around 20 BCM of additional LNG, and disruption of Europipe would require roughly 10 BCM of additional LNG. And actually what is important for us is that we can see that the infrastructure is capable of receiving that LNG and redirecting the flows internally. However, in the case of a cold winter combined with the disruptions, preventing from storage falling below this 30% limit at the end of the winter period would require additional LNG along with the demand response measure, either a policy-based or market-driven. And when we combine high demand events in a cold winter with low starting storage level and supply disruption, so really very extreme situation. But yeah, in this case, we start to observe, we see the limits of possible cooperation. So this clearly demonstrates the importance of coordination and cooperation across the EU. Yes, moving to the next slide. Yeah, and looking at the results, which also include the upcoming summer, we can see that starting from stock level of 83% on 1st of October 2025, the European gas network is able to meet demand and reach 90% storage level in all facilities by the end of the summer 2026. And even without pipeline supply from Russia, under the reference demand scenario, the assessment showed that achieving the 90% storage level would still be possible, provided that the stock levels at the start of the summer don't fall below 35%. And this analysis, this yearly analysis, highlights the critical importance of both securing adequate storage level at the end of the winter and ensuring sufficient imports to maintain the EU gas supply security. So on the next slide, yeah, here we have the summary and main, let's say, takeaways. First, current storage levels with gas infrastructure and strong cooperation allow Europe to operate independently from Russian pipeline supply in most scenarios when we have sufficient LNG, when the sufficient LNG available. However, landlocked countries in Central and Southeastern Europe may face more challenges than others. We see that the gas infrastructure ensures that winter demand can be met and allows sufficient gas injection in summer 2026, even if there were a complete disruption of pipeline supply from Russia. Then securing this, like I mentioned previously several times, that securing the adequate LNG supply is essential, and additional gas volumes may be required to replace Russian supply, and even more would be needed in the case of a cold winter or any infrastructure disruption. And of course, like storage plays a crucial role in ensuring supply security, and low storage levels or yearly significant withdrawals reduce system flexibility, especially when we look to the situation of high demand, like peak day or 2 week. So, and to reach 90% storage by the end of next summer, we need to maintain gas levels at the beginning of the injection season between 30 to 40%. And thanks to the infrastructure, this is achievable. Yes, and moving to the next slide. Wow, I didn't know that I have this kind of animation. But yeah, so here actually you can find the information that on the ENTSO-E webpage, we publish the monitoring dashboard, and this tool allows you to track current storage levels and compare them with the results from the simulations used in the winter outlook. So yeah, thank you. That's all on my side. And I give the floor back to the Francois.
Yes, many thanks, Diana. So I propose now to switch to the Q&A part of this webinar. I see that we have received some questions on Slido. We already answered some of them manually, but we're going to address others here. So the first questions that we got was like, do you perceive different challenges between the summer and the winter analysis? If so, which are the differences in criticality? Simon, do you have?
Yes, I've seen this question. So the different challenges between the summer and the winter analysis is like we can observe increasingly that in summer we need the flexible capacity to ramp down due to excess generation or to excess generation of renewables. And in the winter it will be more and more let's say reliable generation or storage capacity in times of low renewable energy production. We had seen that storage capacity has increased proportionally very fast from last winter to this winter, but in absolute numbers still on a low scale. So this is, I think, maybe the main factor that we see in terms of differences between winter and summer. Yeah.
Thank you. A second question we received was, has the synchronization of the Baltics in any way affected the winter outlook in the region?
So the report only sees minor risks. So the impact of this change is not perceived as very high in the analysis. We also asked the TSOs for feedback in the country comments, and there was no mentioning of this synchronization in general. Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, someone raised that there was a very slight decrease in hydro in the NGC. Yeah, if you have any views.
Yeah. Slide 11, you can see lower. Okay. This is something I cannot answer from the spot, so we would have to come back. If I'm not mistaken, this is APG asking. We would have to come back. I have to look at the data that was submitted, and we can answer that. Yeah. In a later response, in a written response.
See any more questions? Maybe we can proceed with the final slides. Thank you. So this was the outlooks made by both ENTSO-E and ENTSO-G to report and provide a unique pan-European and system-wide analysis of security of supply. This adequacy assessed both the electricity system under various typical conditions. So we have in our methodology 32 weather scenario and 24 outage patterns in the electricity, and also different sensitivity in the gas system under extreme events in case of supply disruption. Prospects in gas and electricity system are better for the winter 2025-2026 than previous years. Risk, though, remain under harsh weather condition, especially if combined with additional adverse incidents. Gas and electricity TSOs maintain awareness, of course, for coming winter as situation in gas and electricity systems continuously evolves. Finally, both ENTSO-E and ENTSO-G remain in close proximity, and we continue exchanging information with each other. Next slide, please. Final one. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. I still don't see any more questions on Slido, so I guess we are all good on that. If you have any additional question, please reach out to those both email addresses that you see on screen for ENTSO-E and for ENTSO-G. ENTSO-G, sorry. Thank you all for attending this presentation, and I wish you a good day after that.
Thank you.